Revised federal guidelines compel us to make all materials accessible all the time. Accessibility improves learning for everyone by creating multiple pathways for learning and by improving instructional design. Pushback from higher ed with regard to the enormous cost of doing this, though, has caused some retreat from the federal position for the time being. However, our objective at IPFW is to ultimately achieve this accessibility goal, starting with can-do things that can be implemented now. This short presentation is organized according to the standards in the IPFW online course design standards that pertain to accessibility. These standards are based on the IT Services Accessibility Checklist, which in turn is based on Section 508 of the Federal Register. Adam Dirksen will provide a faculty perspective of what it means to apply the standards in the design and delivery of an online course. The first standard, Standard 6.1, is course syllabus includes IPFW's disability statement and a link to the services for students with disabilities. Office. IPFW is committed to providing reasonable accommodation and access to programs and services to persons with disabilities. If you have a disability and need assistance, special arrangements can be made to accommodate most needs. Contact the Director of Services for Students with Disabilities in Wald Union, room 113, telephone number 481-6658, as soon as possible to work out the details. Once the director has provided you with a letter attesting to your needs for modification, bring the letter to me. For information, please visit the website for Services for Students with Disabilities. This is our current disability statement. There are examples of statements from other institutions that are called accessibility statements. IPFW could indeed investigate changes to the wording of our statement in light of the new attitude toward web accessibility. The next standard, 6.2, is course materials are multimodal and provide for students who cannot access auditory or visual content. In this slide, we show an example of a narrated PowerPoint in which the narration closely matches the text on screen, contrasting with a graphic representing the same movie in which only a narration is given. There is no text on the screen. The Ohio State University website reads, "Computers can read the text on a screen, but images, graphs, and charts are meaningless to persons without vision, those who run their browsers with the images turned off, and persons using personal data assistants and cellular telephones. Redundancy, or multimodality, increases the likelihood that information will be understood by everyone. Text descriptions of graphs and charts needed by persons without vision can help all students understand difficult concepts." In this example, Worthweller narrated a PowerPoint presentation about paragraphs. His narration is not a verbatim reading of the slide, which keeps things interesting for the student without disabilities. A student can listen to only the audio and still receive essentially the same message as a person who can't hear. This is a good faith effort to provide accessibility without closed captioning. If narration is the only method of delivery as depicted in the right-hand graphic, the lecture is not accessible. Closed captioning may be required, or a lecture handout offered as an alternative means of accessing the material can be prepared. The third standard applying to accessibility is, in course materials, hyperlinks are embedded in their titles. On this slide, we show that the link to Albion's Core Rules of Netiquette is stated in plain English words. In the non-example of what not to do, the link to the Core Rules of Netiquette is positioned as the full URL starting with http://www.albion.com/netiquette. A student listening to a screen reader software will hear link to Albion's core rules of netiquette so that the student will know that there is a link to follow using the keyboard, mouse, or other assistive technology that the student might use to interact with the computer. The student will hear the URL, on the other hand, with all of the punctuation, as I just read it, slightly confusing and distracting since it is following a logically written sentence. The fourth accessibility standard, 6.5, is images, that is, graphics and photos, have alternate text or tag descriptions. On the left-hand part of the screen, we see the IPFW logo. It is described in alternate text as logo for IPFW of a triangle with 3 rivers running through it. The graphic on the right-hand side of the screen is meant to signify that no alt text tag has been added. Images should be tagged with alt text, which briefly describes the image. This is fairly easy to do in Word and in PowerPoint, as well as in Photoshop and many other applications. Another way to do this is to incorporate the description in the other content that appears near the graphic. The last standard, 6.5, is images, that is, graphics and photos, have alternate text tagged descriptions. On the left-hand part of the screen, we see the IPFW logo and its alternate text, which is logo for IPFW of triangle with 3 rivers running through it. On the right-hand side of the screen, we see a logo signifying that no alternate text tag has been added. Images should be tagged, which briefly describes the image. This is fairly easy to do in Word and in PowerPoint, as well as in Photoshop and many other applications. Another way to do this is to incorporate the description of the graphic in the other content that appears near the graphic. So you ask, where do we get help? What are the resources available on the IPFW campus? Here are some links to the resources. CELT also has web-accessible Blackboard templates available that can help you create very navigable, well-organized online courses. Please contact Ludi Goodson in CELT at goodsonl@ipfw.edu to obtain access to them. CELT also encourages you to arrange departmental workshops to learn more about using Word and Acrobat to create accessible documents. Call Gail Rathbun at 481-6504, who can coordinate the event to you. The names of the links presented on this slide are PowerPoint Accessibility by WebAIM, PDF Accessibility by WebAIM, IT Services Web Accessibility Training, CELT's Accessibility Techniques, CELT's Blackboard Templates, and Purdue Web Accessibility page.